we have only 1,119 lecturers only. So that very small number. The lecturer with the PhD holder, only 4.6% of the lecturer in computer science area. Everybody in this community, in this cycle, they understand every single of them, and he is not understand enough. Then they need to come to the student, try to make it in the same knowledge. That's number one. Number two, try to be relaxed, but understand the position of him.
Sampurasun, and welcome to the Genusian podcast, where we bring you the latest news, events, and the most happening people at Nusa Putra University. Today, Nusa Putra University is celebrating the 13th convocation of the batch of students who have graduated from Nusa Putra University, both from the graduate as well as the postgraduate courses. We are very glad today to have among us a very distinguished international academic. It is my proud privilege to introduce Professor Teddy Mantoro. Professor Mantoro started his education in technology, in computer science, from Indonesia. Thereafter, he completed his post-graduation from the Asian Institute of Technology at Bangkok. Thereafter, Professor Mantoro got selected on a scholarship at the Australian National University, where he completed his PhD, and upon completion of his PhD, he was absorbed as a faculty member and served for several years as a faculty member at Australian National University. He also has several other work experiences in other international universities, including the IIUM at Malaysia, the University Technology Malaysia, and after his retirement, he came back to Indonesia and he had a short stint at Sampurna University and has presently joined us at Nusa Putra University as the director of the School of Computer Sciences. It is actually a very proud and honorable moment for me to welcome Professor Teddy Mantoro. Professor, welcome to the Genusian podcast.
Thank you very much, Dr. David.
In fact, I should also mention that Professor Teddy Mantoro, in addition to being a luminary in the field of academics, is also a very outdoors person who has had many treks and mountaineering experiences, etc. And I believe one of his recent exploits has been also to explore places around Sukabumi. So, Professor, welcome to the Genusian podcast, and please tell us something about your adventurous life that you have led, sir.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. David. So, when I was young at the time, I like, of course, going to the mountain. We have a lot of mountain in Indonesia, and also we like to do the climbing actually, because in Indonesia, I can say, like, according to the data that I read, 80% of the field in Indonesia actually composed by the karst. So that's why we have a lot of cave, we have a lot of good wall to do a climbing, the real wall climbing actually. Yeah. So then when I was young at the time, so I can go around to see how beauty was the mountain, and also the wall climbing, and also the caving in Indonesia. So what I can say, one of my favorite cave, if you like, there is one potholing cave. You can explore until 19 kilometers in the ground, and you can explore it for more than 1 month actually. But my experience before only about 2 weeks. The name of the cave, what we call as the Luang Jaran.
Luang Jaran.
Luang Jaran, yeah. And one other thing, there is also one other very important cave. I think something what they call by cave in Indonesia, they call it Goa. Yeah, in Indonesia we call it as the Goa Barat. Okay, Goa Barat mean wind. Okay, in Japanese language. So why this cave quite interesting? Because if you walking after 1 or 2 days, you're going to see like a waterfall. Not only one, 3 waterfall go together. Yeah, so that's also quite interesting me. And my other interesting adventure, actually when I was go to the highest considered as one of the highest mountain in Indonesia, was in Papua.
Sir.
We go to the peak one, we call it as the Trikora Peak, or in English they call it as the Wilhelmina Peak. Yeah.
Yes.
So they happened back to 1990s. I'm still young, of course, at that time. So it took me like nearly 2 months, yeah, to go back, going around to that area actually until we reached to the peak at that time. So that's a little bit of my experience, outdoor experience, adventure experience when I was young.
Sir. So this is really interesting, sir. So today you are a world-renowned expert in artificial intelligence and cybersecurity. You have had several government-sponsored projects which you have undertaken on this. You have been on the advisory boards of several government committees. You have also been, you are also the author of several books and innumerable articles that you have written on the subject. And moreover, you were a permanent resident in Canada, in Australia with your home, everything settled there. So may I ask, sir, what brings you back to Indonesia and specifically to Sukabumi, to Nusa Putra University, sir?
Thank you. Once I have a very good experience from the government actually to continue to develop the new model of one of the funding bodies, yeah, what we call it as the SIMLITAPMAS, Sistem Informasi Manajemen for Penelitian and Pengabdian kepada Masyarakat. Okay, that's in Indonesia. So I'm working working on the system back to 2017, and for 1 year's time, when the government offered me for another years to work in that system, because I'm busy with other stuff, not in my priority anymore, so I moved. So I mentioned this kind of experience because I learned a lot from there, especially they're related with the data. So I find out the number of the lecturer in Indonesia at that time, back to in 2020, in 1st January, the number of the lecturers that we have around 292,561. Okay, that's the total number of the lecturers that we have in Indonesia. Now, my area, as you just mentioned, in the computer science, especially in AI and cybersecurity. So the lecturers who are working or teaching or doing research according to the PDDikti, the database belong to the government, we have around 24,659. Okay, 24,569. And surprisingly at the time, the number of the PhD holder who teach bachelor degree or even postgraduate degree in Indonesia, we have only 1,119 lecturers only. So they're very small number. The lecturer with the PhD holder, only 4.6% of the lecturer in computer science area or in the computing area actually. Yeah, because computer science mean informatics, but not only teknik informatika, but also in sistem informasi and others. So we have only 4.6%. So when I see the average also in almost every single study program, including the finance, the political science, and so on, the range between 4 until 6%. So which is not so good. If we compare to Malaysia, for example, Malaysia they got 96% at the time back to 2020, and then if you see the profile in Singapore, they have 100% also, nearly 100%, but I can say 100%. And you just mentioned previously that I was live in Australia more than 10 years at the time. So I saw like almost the lecturer, if they want to teach in the university in Australia, they have to have like at least the PhD degree. Of course, there is some exception if people from the industry, they want to teach in the university, a different scheme, right? So now back to Indonesia, when I saw the number of the lecturer only 4.6, they become my attention. How can we help the government here yeah, with the small thing that we can do, but we can help. So they become my my purpose actually. If we can running our own PhD degree here, we waiting from the license at the moment, Dr. David. But I can mention also, at the moment we are in very good shape. Why? As you see during the graduation just now, our bachelor degree in IT, both of them, we have the excellent accreditation, right? Meaning unggul Indonesia. So they're the top notch of the accreditation. And at the same time, we got also the unconditional, or we call it as fully accredited in terms of accreditation from overseas. And the country who give us the accreditation is not just small country. This is Germany, not easy to get the fully accredited from them. So we have a good basis, and at the same time also the master degree at the moment, master degree that we're running, the computer science degree, we also got the same thing, right? The excellent accreditation, and at the same time also we have the fully accredited for the computer science. So then we just wait at the moment to get the PhD holder license and to running the program. Yeah, once we running the program, I hope in the near future, not that long, we can have a lot of people graduate from our school with the PhD degree, and helping the countries to improve the number of the PhD holder in this country, not only 4.6% or in average between 4 until 6%, so hopefully become 10%, and then before 2030, for example, so we can get some at least 50% if that's possible.
Right.
I saw the government also helping for this direction, and actually the target from the government also there. So I saw a lot of other universities also doing the same thing, but in terms of the quality. So I'm really proud with the school that we're running at the moment.
Absolutely. Yeah. So in fact, I must state this on record that the School of Computer Sciences under your directorship has got not only excellent grading, but also the ACAS accreditation from Germany, which actually enables our students to have a global career once they graduate from Nusa Putra University. Professor, you have been at the forefront of a cutting-edge technology, which till very recently a person like me, a non-science person like me, had not even heard of. You have been at it since last 2-3 decades, and that is artificial intelligence and cybersecurity. May I request you to please explain to us a little bit about the field so that we can understand about it, and also the future prospects for it, and why our students are going towards it, or why they should prepare for it.
Yep. So thank you very much, Dr. David. Very nice question.
Thank you, sir.
But the problem here is I have to explain it in the for the regular person, basically.
Yes.
not for the academician people.
Sir.
So to make it easy and simple, I believe everybody using WhatsApp.
Yes, sir.
So yeah, so you're using WhatsApp also. And then can you imagine if you have a friend and in US there, whereas you have to fly from here to there maybe 24 hours. Okay, flight 24 hours, but using WhatsApp only in milliseconds, and suddenly there.
Yes, sir.
The question is, this is not a magic, right? Yes, and suddenly, the message will be there. There is no other way to sending the kind of message to reach to the destination right away, almost in the real times, reach to the destination. That's impossible without any AI. Why I mention AI in the telecommunication? Because when we transfer the certain data through the fiber optic, and then inside the fiber optic there's a lot of router. Inside of the router there is a matrix. So they do very quick calculation. They already there actually. So when the data come in, they're storing directly. So this is the example of on AI work basically, yeah. But what happened with the AI? AI actually we try to mimic, okay, on how the biological, like us, for example, biological thing like us, like our brain,
yes, sir.
or sometimes like ant also. So ant actually they move one by one.
Yes, sir.
There is no eyes with them, but there is some certain liquid,
chemical, yes,
chemical
sir.
thing,
Yes,
so
sir.
they follow. So we saw slowly by slowly they do the optimization problem basically. So that's why the uncolony algorithm was there, and then after some time they do some optimization also. Because n only is not enough. Sometimes they also because there is two-dimension problem basically, right? So they can do also for the three-dimension solving the three-dimension problem using an algorithm. So that's the example of how AI work basically. Now, what happened with the future? So the future will be every single angle they will be full of AI, including the threat. AI not only helping us, for help to make it everything become easier, but in the same time also become the threat. Because using AI, so people can be manipulated. Became AI nowadays. Everybody knows about the ChatGPT, for example.
Yes, that's a big problem.
Yeah, just recently there is some new approach from China, what they call by DeepSeek.
Yes,
so everybody familiar, I think already familiar with. Some of you already try also. And Microsoft, the giant of AI, the giant company in AI was Microsoft until today. And then he produced the Copilot, very strong also.
Yeah, yes.
And in the same time also Google, for example, they have the Gemini. So currently we have some Gemini people. They have some approach to us. We are preparing to do some collaboration in terms of the academic matter with the Gemini people together with the School of Computer Science Saputra University. All right, so we're working on that. Now, when we see this about the AI, my point is, in some sense, AI helping us a lot to tracking people. Bad people can be tracked also, and so on. In the same time, they become the threat also, because they're going to threat to us also. So what is the best option for handling this kind of problem in the near future? Then we need to understand the technology behind.
Yes, sir.
So one of the best option to do, of course, this is not a promotion actually,
Yes,
maybe promotion also. So I would like to invite everybody actually to come to our school to study in deep, in terms of especially for the postgraduate degree, because we offer like the a little bit different type of course. Inside that, you're going to see not only AI, but the next generation of AI, what we call as the computational intelligence. All right, so there is a course about the computational intelligence, and at the same time also like the NLP, the natural language processing, in some and also some deep learning, some reasoning, and other stuff there. And the one who teach, most of all our lecturers, they are graduated from overseas.
Yes.
And I can say also maybe more than 30% of our lecturers in computer science and School of Computer Science, they are actually foreigner. One of them came from Italy, came from Malta. Some of them they came from Australia, even also came from Malaysia.
Yes.
They currently reside in Malaysia, but when we ask them to teach, they come to Indonesia, except because we're running the school using blended learning. So then, according to the government rule, we can have more than about 60% should be face-to-face, the other 40% can be online. So the lecturer, they came from Malaysia, for example, they can teach us online. They are, some of them actually, when I was in Australia, in Malaysia, they are working in my lab. So then I have a good trust in terms of the content. But the lecturer, they came from Italy, for example, they always come to Indonesia. So we make some agreement with what kind of the date. Usually in 2 weeks time they are stay here, then teaching face-to-face with the student. For me to have the face-to-face class with the foreigner is very important. And our class running in English for every single of the class. That's about the AI, by the way. Dr. David, you're asking me into side. One is in AI, the other one is for cybersecurity. So when I mentioned about the example of the WhatsApp in the back, the data was transferring to anywhere. We understand that man in the middle attack usually. This is something that we call it. So what happened is someone can sitting in one of the router
Some
they
scammer.
take some scammer. They
Yes.
can do some scamming, and then then they do bad thing basically.
Yes, sir.
So they're stealing your credential, login ID and password, and then break your code. Yeah. So this is about the cyber security. So in Indonesia we call it as keamanan cyber, about how secure is your network basically. Really unfortunate if we see a lot of institutions in Indonesia. We are actually not that ready. My point is, some of the like institution or even the company, for example, they have maybe some
Firewalls. Yes, sir.
but the question is that enough? The answer is not enough at all.
Yes, sir.
Because one of the most important thing here, we need to build something what I call as the secure network. What does secure network mean? Secure network mean the connection from outside, we need to control it. Currently in Indonesia or in some other countries also, if for example you come to your office and then suddenly you're not happy with the connection in your office, you do the tethering, right? And again, this is another source. This is very easy for the bad guy to put some malware inside of your mobile, and then they goes to stealing your data inside of your server there. So how to make it secure network? Number one, make sure that not happen. Yeah, if someone, for example, using mobile in the same or using the laptop in the same, they have the double connection. Yeah? We not allow, for example, for people to have the connection from outside, also from the from our local, okay, from GSM network, for example, and also with the local. We don't want that happen. So what to do if you have some problem? Then we need to have some separation in the term of the software, of course. So then we need to separate them. Okay, but in some sense they're going to do some other synchronization. So then the data that come in, usually they came from internet service provider. We need to limit them only one or two. Usually have two. Yeah, one is for your main connection, the other one is for the backup. That's it. Then we not allow other connection come into our area. Of course, backup should be there and so on. So this kind of stuff, we need to make it sure that this is secure enough. Now, why I'm telling you this? Because imagine, this is statistic from a lot of study in the world. If, for example, one company, they have his own website, and suddenly someone managed to attack them, okay, by defacement, for example, or doing DDoS. After some time, they go to the database of them, and then they destroy, they're stealing the database. When they're stealing the database, what happens? They do the encryption. They can use the malware, or they can use some other approach. So statistics show data for the company, they can survive maximum only 6 months.
Yep.
Actually between 3 until 6 months. Why is that? Why they suddenly vanish, they die basically.
Yes,
yeah, that's only because of after the data was destroyed, they don't
Yes, sir.
know
Anything. Yes, sir.
Yeah, they don't know anything. I mean, how they can get the profit from which company, for example, who going to pay to them? They don't get the data anymore, and then at the same time suddenly someone asks you to ask them to pay something, whereas they don't know because they lost the record, and they need to pay because there's some proof, yeah, for that. So then because of that, so now in our school we have very advanced courses. I can say, like for example, like the cryptography and its application. The application can be from the military, from the economic, and so on.
Absolutely.
So we prepare for that. We have a quite strong lecturer to teach about the cryptography. I myself already dig for the cryptography for many years since I'm young. 30 years ago, for example, RSA algorithm I was in my brain. So when I teaching in my class, I push all my students to also memorize like what I did, yeah, related to the RSA algorithm. And the same time also in the banking, before they using the RSA algorithm, but now they're using something what they call by ECC, elliptic curve cryptography. This is considered as the strongest thing. Why they're strong? Because if you want to make it some certain data become secure with only 20 bit of the security, they need to have like 14 days to break. But if we make it like 40 bit, all right, so what happens is
they can quickly do.
No, they need to break it with the supercomputer machine.
Okay, lot of computing power is required.
Yes, but in terms of the time, until 150 47 years.
Oh.
They can break it.
Okay.
Right? If you're using the 40 bit of the security, using RSA or using the SEC algorithm. But there is some new technology. They can break in even a couple of minutes. They use what they call by using the quantum computing. All right. So then we learn also in this campus about the quantum computing. And the same times, we have some very strong and good courses, what we call as the malware analysis and reverse engineering. So you can imagine there is some other application. We can reverse engineering become a certain code, and we can insert the malware inside there, bundle it back, and then testing whether they're running or not, whether they connect to our command center or not, and so on. Yeah. So this kind of course was there, and we have a very good lecturer to teach them. And the next course that I can mention here, which is very important, also something what we call as the mitigation and the incident response. All right. So we have couple lecture with a good experience of it. In the government also there's a lot of attacker, and then some of our lecturers they help them. Even one of our lecturer, actually for the last 4 years she is the expert. She is the expert in one a deputy cyber in a certain government office here in Indonesia. They are teaching with us also. And there is of course some computer forensic. So we have also a good and strong lecturer. Considered as the strongest player in Indonesia. They are teaching in our school also. And the last thing that I can mention here, still another courses of course. Yeah? So this is about the information security management. Yeah? This is the framework and so on was inside there. So that's why I feel confident that the students who are going to study with us, we have only two, yeah, by the way. One is in terms of the artificial intelligence, the other one is in terms of the cyber security. So I think they are going to be happy. Happy make his brain a little bit headache actually. But there you go. You need to be headache to make yourself strong. Yeah, when the problem come in, they can handle they can problem as.
Absolutely, sir. And this, I can actually see your passion for this, sir. But I have had many students from the computer course as well, and one of the persistent complaints that usually engineering students in Nusa Putra University have is that we have no time. We are made to work day and night, and we have to, we have no free time. We have to study. We have to come early in the morning. Sometimes till late at night we have to stay, and we have to complete assignments and all. But I understand that this is a part of gaining the knowledge in such a short period of time that students have here, and that is why they are pushed hard. But Professor, as an academic, you have been in academia for 30 years, or more, 32 years in fact, and counting. And you have worked in several different cross-cultural institutions where you have had many students from many universities. Nusa Putra University is also a multicultural campus. We have students from more than 80 countries who are studying here. But I just want to ask you, as a senior professor, your take on this. Many of our students feel the stress of studies here. They feel that they are getting stressed, especially in engineering, sir, because it's a lot to learn in a very short time, and they're driven very hard by. I'm not hesitant to say it, by your school also. You hardly give any time to your students. You really drive them hard. So. What would your suggestion be how students can take care of their mental health, their physical health, so that they can become good scholars who can contribute to the development of Indonesia and take it to its rightful place in the future, sir, as good scholars?
Yeah, so thank you very much, Dr. David. That's not easy, to study in the, in the university, whereas a lot of a good lecturer, actually, they want to stroll their knowledge to the student, all right? So then, one of the strategy, they came from the university first, all right? So what happened with the university, we should develop one program, what we call as the success student program. Okay, success student in not only in the academic matters, but also in the social life student, all right? Social life, and then in terms of the study, of course, in terms of the family also. Then we need to preparing some certain program for it. In the case, for example, the student have hardly to understand some certain programming language, for example. Yeah, nowadays they're using Python and so on, so make them headache. So then we, from the school perspective, we try to help them by preparing some extra times after office time, or nearly like in the afternoon, for example. They can come to the lab, they can study together with the tutor, not the lecturer, by the way. So this is what I call as the student success. Now, your question actually, how the student handle this kind of
Yes,
thing.
sir.
Number one, positioning.
Sir.
Try to understand what is the situation of they have. Try to compare with his friend. If their friend if his friend, everybody in this community, in this cycle, they understand every single of them, and he is not understand enough, then they need to come to the student, try to make it in the same knowledge. That's number one. Number two, try to be relaxed, but understand the position of him. Which part they understand and the which part they don't understand. One more thing, this is something what I call it, I always mention in my class. If some student want to pass for my class, my suggestion only one. Please try to be a normal student. What does normal student mean? Normal student mean come to the class, do your exercise, assignment, all your tasks basically, including the reading tasks, and then do your midterm, do also your final exam. All right. But in our school, the most important thing here is do the assignment. Okay. Why? If the student, for example, they miss 1 or 2 assignment, they already 1 or 20% gone, and there's no guarantee the midterm or the final they're going to have the high grade. So because of that, then become a big problem later on. So again, my suggestion: number one, positioning yourself. Number two, try to be relaxed, and number three, do your job, become a normal student. That's my suggestion that I can mention in this context.
Thank you very much, Professor.
Thank you.
In fact, I must mention here that your contributions to Nusaputra University and the way you are leading the School of Computer Sciences at Nusaputra University is an exemplar. It has been certified not only by the government institutions and the accrediting bodies, but also by foreign institutions such as ACAS from Germany and other institutions. And it is indeed a proud privilege that we have you here to guide the students of Nusaputra University in a very, very cutting edge field of study in artificial intelligence and cybersecurity. It was a pleasure and an honor, Professor, to have you here. Thank you so much, Professor
Thank you very much,
and
Dr.
we hope that we'll have you here again soon.
Thank you.
And
I will
yes,
come.
thank you. So, Nusaputra University gives opportunities to students to study. We provide scholarships to the best students who have a zeal to study and who are willing to put in the hard work to become the academic leaders that they need to. Come to Nusaputra University and see the difference, feel the difference, join us and live the difference to make a difference in the destiny of Indonesia. Thank you very much, and let us join next week again. Until then, Sampurasun.